today is the 5th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a day of reckoning for Canada's treatment of Indigenous peoples and to mourn the children who never made it home from residential schools. Joining us live to discuss the significance of the day is the Assembly of First Nations Yukon Regional Chief Kluane Adamek. A pleasure to welcome you back into studio. Thank you so much for coming. I want to ask you on a personal level, I just want to begin by seeing how you're doing today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm, certainly standing with so many and wearing my orange shirt day pin. And, I took some time yesterday to go down to the Nathan Phillips Square. And there were artisans and there were traditional performers, former leaders. And there was a tent for Indigenous residential school survivors. So for me, I'm feeling very mindful, very aware of the sensitivity and really thinking about all those who have gone through the residential school system who are still with us and sending them a lot of love today.
I wonder how you would characterize the state of reconciliation in this country at this moment, because we know that, of course, today's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation comes against the backdrop of some legislation in Ottawa, the major projects legislation, which many Indigenous leaders have raised concerns about its impact on their rights. And I wonder, how you would characterize the state of reconciliation given that broader context.
I think there's a whole lot to talk about in terms of, the state of reconciliation. I think the first thing, and driving downtown Toronto and seeing the sign, Every Child Matters, it is important to show up on this day, but it's also important to show up every day. So the questions I have are around, any major company that is supporting this day. I often see reconciliation on the shoulders, the weight of reconciliation on the shoulders of Indigenous people, and that's the first thing I want to address, is that I think every single company, organization that is seeking to support this day also has a responsibility to support their internal employees so that they feel good on this day. When it comes to legislation, I know there are a lot of questions, issues, concerns about Bill C5, but also provincial legislation in Ontario and British Columbia, and rightly so. We always have to be mindful of process, rights, what's the balance, and the balance being, major projects and circumvening a rights-based approach. So it is my hope that we can lean in and look at a way to advance a rights-based approach in the landscape that we're in. And so that is my hope moving forward. In terms of reconciliation, every company should have its plan. How are they advancing reconciliation? It's never an end point. It is absolutely a journey, but there are ways that you can start to internally measure how have you advanced the principles of reconciliation and how have you delivered in a way that is respectful and that honors the spirit and intent of the TRC calls to action.
I actually want to pick up on that point, because this year also coincides with the 10th anniversary of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action, of which only a small fraction have actually been completed in the country. And I wonder what progress you would like to see and what message you have for the Carney government in committing to continuing to implement these calls to action.
One of the biggest issues I do see, I want to acknowledge the three commissioners, the late Murray Sinclair, Marie Wilson, who's a friend, as well as Uncle Willie Littlechild, I call him. And that work and people sharing their stories was pivotal in terms of this country getting a stronger understanding of what's next. So I guess in terms of where are we at with that reconciliation, the calls to action, I think this is an opportunity for, again, federal governments, provincial governments, organizations, business, industry, every community to really start to think about that. How are they advancing those calls to action, particularly in the spheres where they're working? What I would say to, of course, all federal governments is that we have to honor and respect a rights-based approach. And if, moving forward, I can do something to help them understand what that means, that is my hope. And I know that there are so many others who are open and willing to do the same. It just requires people to listen. So I've seen those signals. I'm always cautiously optimistic, but I do definitely see there being an opportunity for us as a country to get things right and to get things on a path that is reflective of a rights-based approach, advance a rights-based approach, but that also doesn't include unilateral decision-making.
Okay, Chief Kluane Adamek, I'll leave it there. You and I had a much more extended conversation on today's episode of the Big Story podcast. I hope everyone can listen to it. Thank you so much for making space for the conversation this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.